I am wrestling with myself in my mind. Is this life imitating art or art imitating life? It has snowed outside. I guess because this image came out first, I suppose life is imitating art. Artist Journal, March 9th, 2023, broadcasting to the world from Berlin, Germany. My name is Adrian Pocobelli. It's funny, I was on the podcast, a late night last night there, trying not to wake up my neighbors with my voice, which my girlfriend says is far too loud when we are in restaurants. I don't think it's too loud. I think she's just giving me a hard time. But yeah, anyways, it was an awesome conversation yesterday with Die With The Most Likes and Threesomes on their podcast. We had a good time. I felt like I needed a beer. It was just a very fun hangout. And it was a great conversation. So that is available. I'll show the link. Let's get to this first. Again, art imitating life, or life imitating art, because now it's snowing and this came out first. Winter came late here in Berlin. But anyway, I think you know the artist here, Michael Micasso. And this was one of those works that I think it just hit me on a reptilian level, frankly, even before I understood what I was looking at, that was a tree, and I loved it. So there's something to be said for that kind of experience here. And yeah, I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful still life. I love the margin and frame too. I'm kind of big on those kind of details like that, and just like the beautiful rendition. And let's just look at the resolution here. 180 by 210. So this is super important, and of course scaled up to 10x to 1800 by 2100. And we also know, I think the word is nomenclature. We also know the nomenclature 180 by 210 by 10 is another way of saying it's been scaled up by 10. But, sometimes I mention how if I was to do a class on digital art, I would start with pixel art because it presents you with some of the most basic problems that you need to solve right away. And in this case, it's the size of the canvas. Right? And look at how small that canvas is. 180 by 210. I mean, a Google ad is 300, the small rectangular, square rectangular Google ad is 300 by 250, last I checked. So this is smaller than that. So pretty cool, but it is the nature of pixel art. Anyway, a beautiful, beautiful work by mech.txt. Great to see him back on the scene. And we got a few by him, actually. And here's another one. Calling the day off for that little sleep oasis. Have a good rest, everyone. And so another just gorgeous work here. The rendition of the snow and everything. This little hut in what seems like a snowy field, but this is what's kind of interesting. The extra decisions that seem to be made here, because doesn't this kind of look like clouds over here? And then the landscape, and again, I'm kind of back to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, my hometown. Shout out to Mom, who is likely watching this. It almost reminds me of one of those gray days where almost the gray snow, the reflection of the sky on the snow and everything, and it's just everything is just kind of gray. It's almost like that out here in Berlin today, although it's much more intense in Saskatoon, where the snow, where you just look off into the plains. So here's another landscape by mech.txt. So he is coming out in force. And this was an interesting one as well. Again, it's there seems to be a move or a step towards just towards abstraction. Just a slight step towards abstraction, which I find super interesting. It's almost like the color layer that colors in the clouds is being deleted. This is what I see. Yeah, I see basically there's layers that are being turned off. One of my favorite techniques. Who knows? But anyway, interesting. And this was on Solana and sold for $213, a one of one. I mean, it seems pretty reasonable. This probably would have went, I'm guessing, I don't know, might have went for a lot more on Tezos. So the reason I mention that is there are deals to be had, with artists like Manadol, who also posts on Solana. There are deals to be had on Solana. Here's another one that mech.txt published here on Twitter, Liminal Horizon Lunch Break Practice. So just sketches here, an interesting kind of portal or something, almost like 2001 type thing going on here. So again, just kind of interesting experimentation, and it's kind of back to this idea of taking breaks. And I don't think mech.txt took a huge break, but he was on vacation for a couple of weeks there, and sometimes that's just enough to completely reinvigorate your process and just come up with new ideas. So there is something to be said for taking breaks here and there, and that's true for anything. And shout out to Rosetio, who mentions Michael Micasso here. I think I watched too much of Pocobelli's Artist Journal. Pixel art bleeds to my art now. Shout out to Michael Micasso too, the pixel art specialist in this space. Work in progress for one of my works that will be dropped on Foundation next week. So here we see the pixelation has been added, so very cool. And it's pretty interesting work, again, to just kind of return to Rosetio's, work here with a moon that, seems to be masked by this black here, and then a skull put on top, and even just this, brush, this beautiful digital brush that almost creates like a no smoking, in German you'd say a verboten, like a verboten sign here, this red stripe across. So anyways, there's a lot going on here. So anyways, shout out to Rosetio. Glad you're enjoying the show, and trying to make the best of everybody's time here. So continuing on, thank you everybody for showing up yesterday to the the Twitter spaces that we had yesterday. Has the role of the curator changed? It was I was taken aback at all the participation. When I first put out this tweet, there wasn't much traction. So I thought, maybe people aren't interested. Maybe me and Runetoon will have to carry the show and that'll be fun. But in fact, we couldn't get to everybody. And we got some wonderful comments at the very end. I think it was Briona, I think. We got really wonderful people and a great discussion on curatorship. And this whole, I think we actually made a lot of progress on this discussion that we're having on this program, which is, this whole idea of open versus closed platforms, and kind of the beautiful conclusion, I think it was Underground that helped us come to this conclusion, is it's not open platform good, closed platform bad. It's, the important thing, kind of the takeaway for me, and I think for maybe some other people, was it's just important that we have these open platforms like Object or on Tezos, or like Foundation on Ethereum, just so that people can make their name, so to speak, create if you're completely unknown and then you show up here, that you have basically a level playing field to build something for yourself. And right now, these both exist. So in a sense, from there, if you can persuade people on these other, on these closed platforms to bring you on, you kind of have the opportunity to do so, by showing that you can do it on these other platforms. So I thought it was actually, we really pushed for me, in my own mind, the conversation forward. Because then maybe it's maybe Object One's not so bad that it's, quote unquote closed. And anyway, there's some great thoughts, and Ed Marola showed up, which was also awesome. So anyways, check that out. And again, we do it every Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come join and have your say. It was really, I was really thrilled with it. And here is the hangout yesterday with Die with the most likes on the left here and Threesomes on the right. I always thought I thought it was going to be this guy. And actually, it turned out to be a much younger guy. So anyways, it was a lot of fun, and I highly recommend that podcast and that show. We had a ton of fun. Sounds like we'll do it again, and I'd be thrilled. As I said, I'll bring the beer next time. Comments. So I guess the show got out a little bit. The Louvre, or as I think Mars yesterday said, I didn't realize it was pronounced Louvre, as I've been pronounced. It's the Louvre, as Mars, the guy from Texas, pointed out to me. But we got some interesting comments that I did want to go over, because it's kind of what's the word? It was an interesting discussion. Let's call it that. It's funny, from Sabato. So great to hear from Sabato. Great episode. It's funny that you brought up the question about the Louvre. I visited there in 2018, and at the time I had a Brazilian painter friend who also who was also showing at the Louvre, quote unquote. So I went to the main museum and walked around all day. Place is huge, and didn't see any contemporary art. before leaving, I realized that there was a whole Louvre carousel building that I missed where my friend was showing. I think that whole block along with the garden are all technically, quote unquote, the Louvre, but I appreciate you parsing that bit of PR. On a side note, I've noticed a lot of exhibition opportunities geared towards digital artists that exist mostly to get some kind of cultural milestone or to check off a box on a CV instead of trying to create fulfilling viewing experiences. I think the show your art in Times Square thing is another example of this trend. Because no one really likes to go to Times Square, or the worst example, actually, there's no space for comfortable viewing. And from my own experience, it's sort of a downer to realize that your art is just competing with ad buys from mega corporations selling stupid things. The Louvre Carousel does sound nicer than Times Square. Both have a McDonald's, but I've also never been to the former. I'm curious what exhibiting there is like, if it feels like a gallery or like an indoor shopping center. In any case, it makes for great PR. So, yeah. So interesting comment, and I think really in the second paragraph, I thought that was particularly interesting because I think there is a mentality as everybody is trying to grow and succeed in the space and art. Again, it's an entrepreneurial and it is at times a competitive venture. So people are trying to pad their CVs. Social proof, as we've been discussing since the very beginning of this show. Trying to get, now I've shown in the quote unquote the Louvre or on Times Square, therefore I've made it and you should pay more for my work and you should show me in other works. So, yeah, so interesting. And Wild Disposed actually had a very interesting comment, which is a bit more, let's say, blunt, which I thought was interesting. I agree, this type of move seems consistent with the current mainstream NFT and crypto trends. Another scam that is bound to keep the whole space exhibiting next to McDonald's and across the street from the renowned cultural arts centers. I admire Claire Silver's work and agree with Sabato that that would be pretty cool showcasing at the carousel, but I believe the distinction is immensely important to signal intelligence, respect, and an ability to cite references. Proving those things will win the respect of the general public, but we would rather mire in the degen life of attention debt forever. There are some that know and care how to be articulate and intentional. We need just more examples than we have to get past the despicable image most of humanity has for NFT crypto art. Thanks for the deep dive and teaching through example how to research things and provide accurate information. The reason I read this is because I think Wild Disposed actually has a pretty important point, and I agree, and I think Sabato ultimately agrees, that this distinction is important. It's not a meaningless, again, you don't want to make a mountain of a molehill, but it is important, and the kind of what we could all argue, and maybe it's unintentional, but this kind of misdirection or misrepresentation, intentional or not, of this situation. What are the people at the Louvre going to think when they see this and they go, oh, okay, what do they think, right? Or what does the general public think? And then they go, okay, what does the William Morris, what does WME think? I don't know if Claire has thought that through either, because if I'm William Morris and I look at this and I see this, I wonder what the deal is, because I think to Wild Disposed's point is it seems to confirm people's worst fears about the crypto space, and so Wild Disposed is saying this isn't helping us. And I think Wild Disposed actually has a pretty good point. So, and Bulls also weighed in, and I don't want to spend too much time, but it was kind of topical, shall we say. And Bulls also basically confirmed what was being said, that it is in fact a shopping mall. Hello, Adrian. Hope you're doing well. I'm watching, and I asked Bulls if I could share this, by the way. I'm watching today's episode, and the Claire Silver Louvre controversy. I can confirm everything you say about the Carousel du Louvre. So, Bulls has actually put on a show there. I have tokenized pieces to the Carousel du Louvre too. Probably the first ever tokenized pieces ever in there. Not that anyone cares. So. Thanks, Bulls. So anyways, it sounds like we got the story right over here. Yeah, so I can confirm the Carousel du Louvre has really nothing to do with the Louvre Museum side of things. As you said, it's kind of like a mall. Our collection was exhibited in the context of art shopping event that took place at the Carousel du Louvre. And this is the important thing also. As a little project, and besides not being really the Louvre, this was huge for us. And we are very glad we had the chance to do something like this. So exactly, like it's not to diminish anything, but it's just to kind of get it right, because I think it kind of hits at the credibility of the space, I would argue, from my personal journal over here. I think it hurts. And so, so I think it's just something important to be recognized that, to be accurate, it builds credibility. Now, we got another tweet on top of this. Now, at first I thought this was all going to be clarified. This is from Claire Silver. Confusion in the notice. The Louvre has not acquisitioned my work. I'm just exhibiting there. As reported in my tweet in Variety, this is facilitated by Super Chief NFT. I'm also not the first AI artist to do so. To my knowledge, that honor goes to Van Arman. So this was after. So this was a clarification. And so, but again, is this a clarification? So I'm just exhibiting there. So anyway, again, I don't want to make too much of this, but then I'll show you, this is the problem, and let me show you. So NFT statistics, when Claire Silver came on Proof Podcast, she explained that when she got her first punk, she was told not to sell until the punks are in the MoMA. Crazy that her own work will be featured in a Grail tier museum first. And just, listen, so what the public understands, this is the problem, is this.
Mr. 703, who gifted it to me, said you shouldn't sell it until a punk is featured in the MoMA. Okay, and how crazy is it that the punk hasn't got to the MoMA yet, but her work is getting featured at the Louvre in Paris? Just completely incredible. I'm giving her a little applause there a few years ago. And now she's being featured at one of the most historic museums on the planet. But she said, when I first...
Okay, so... and I'm sure NFT statistics, the host there, he just probably doesn't know any better. And you can't blame him. Can you? I mean, he's just taking the information he's gotten. Maybe he didn't have to spend 2 hours researching this, he just assumes that the information is good. So anyways, that is kind of the problem. And then this gets perpetuated, and then, the general public or even the contemporary art world and just goes, okay, NFT and crypto space has a long way to go, as Wild Disposed kind of points out. And I don't think this scene needs to do that. I think the art is already there. I just don't think it's necessary to overreach. So anyways, and look at this. So here is a beautiful story of a guy who started on Tezos, like maybe 2 years ago, and went to Super Rare, graduated, we might say, or however you want to put that. And then, after proving himself on Object and Tezos, then goes to Super Rare, does very well, very nice guy, and now he's at Sotheby's. Okay, so that is the promise of this space, and I just think it's awesome. So One Don't Knows, GM, I'm thrilled to announce that my art Daydreaming will be auctioned at Sotheby's. And here it is, Sotheby's website, it is there, right? And so congratulations to One Don't Knows Daydreaming. I mean, that is so impressive, right? Here's, again, that is the promise of this space. And that is something that, how often does that happen in the contemporary art world? It's not the most, it does happen. People's careers do move. But I think he's, if I'm not mistaken, in Indonesia. And how many people does that happen to in Indonesia? Right? So digital. So anyways, very cool. Curation from NFT Asia. And here are other works from the show. There are, I think, 10 works. And they're so complex main course. Maybe we'll just take a very quick look at that. So very cool. So these guys are now, quote unquote, Sotheby's artists, as people like to say. So I think it's great. Here's another one, Daniel Liang. So just an example of what is happening out there. More commentary. Pablo Puncasso. So this kind of feeds into this whole idea that kind of the collector and the curator and the artist are all blending into one on this in this scene for whatever reason, because I was very surprised to see that Pablo Picasso is actually an artist as well. As well as, disrupting super rare, one could argue, also as an artist. All 75 reincarnated limited editions have been minted. Seriously, can't say enough for all the support I got today. So many absolute legends. And here is the series that looks like AI art. And here are the editions. So you can see it there. So anyway, another example of, the artist, collector, artist, curator, artist, collector, artist, right? Which I think is interesting. And a couple of more comments here. And we'll get to Foundation open editions that are happening right now. The one-of-one and edition market will remain fragmented and relatively slow until better collector tools are created. It's simply too spread out and confusing for collectors with liquidity to really get a grasp for what's going on. And so that's also Pablo Picasso. And I basically agree that it's overwhelming. And, once you have spent as much, say, time as I or many of you have in the space, you do get a familiarity and you do get a sense of where you are and a sense of, the word escapes me right now, but just being able to ground yourself and recognize, okay, this is kind of from that space. This is, in that category, which is why, again, I did that, the genres of digital art. It's a way to bring people in so that, because otherwise it's too confusing. So just kind of saying something that I think a lot of us knew. It's pretty confusing out there. Especially for people in the space and also for people even outside the space. Here's Foundation. Now they have just released what they're calling live editions. And they put out a show. So these are a bunch of open editions on Foundation, which is on Ethereum. And look at this. 32,000 have sold already. Foundation's inaugural world replica invites 35 exceptional creators to release an open edition in one unified moment, combining the enhanced network effects of editions with the power of community. So this is pretty cool. And so this is brand new. And I mean, one of the takeaways here is, so now they have open editions. Like if I'm Object, I continue to be concerned that Foundation is going to eat my lunch here. Now, they're just doing open editions as far as I understand right now, but what happens when they start doing limited editions? And the only thing that I think, really stops Foundation are ETH gas fees. That is, like, to me, the biggest hurdle that they have to kind of keep on encroaching on Object space, but who knows, again, just speculation and thoughts from a journal here. This is a great work. Actually, we're going to look at this in a second. And so one more from Pablo Picasso, who is very quotable here. Loving editions on Foundation, but two features are just absolute musts to push it to the next level of full adoption. Limited editions, as we were just saying, and 1155 support. Now, this is a technical NFT. There's basically two kinds of NFTs. The 721, ERC 721, and the ERC 1155. Generally, editions are done with the 1155. So I'm actually surprised to see that these would be ERC 721s. But but I think I do understand. It's just the way, like on OpenSea, sometimes you'll see an edition of 100 and it'll be one work. And then that would be an ERC 1155. But if you have an edition of 100 and you see 100 different versions, those would be each one an ERC 721. So I assume these are ERC 721s that are going on here. So interesting comments. And finally, Dan Control. Went shopping. I would buy a lot more if I could. Wonderful curation and awesome new feature by Foundation for their replica world. And it's interesting how they're combining the worlds, like the curated show, with these open editions. So they continue to innovate. And again, here's that really cool work here and other really cool works that Dan Control found. And look at this, lists them all. How cool is that? So shout out to Dan Control. And I assume he is not far behind in listing one for him. One kind of visual question I have as we look at, say, this super cool work here is this decision to put these works kind of show that it's an addition underneath. It does slightly distract from the composition, but if we click on it, can we make it bigger? That's kind of interesting too. And maybe I just can't find the make it bigger thing. But it does kind of change the work a tiny bit by having this kind of multiple image underneath it. So yeah, I'm trying to double click here. Maybe that's just my browser right now though. So anyways, influencing by Kita Savvy. And I thought this was just a really nice work. Maybe we can open it in a new tab. Here it is. Let's go up close. So anyways, just a very interesting, unusual work here. So Dan Control collected it. I think Sabato also retweeted this, and very interesting. Speaking of Sabato, he put out a work called Garçom. So interesting, drawing exercise. And he actually had a very interesting comment. Let's look at the comment first and then go back to the work. Here it is. This is what I wanted to. This is my first ever walk cycle animation made entirely in deluxe paint. And this is what I want to get to. It's an ode to labor, to all the workers that I've got to always be serving. And like they're a robot or something. So anyway, I thought that was a pretty, just a cool work here. And again, to me, this just shows like the thoughtfulness and the depth of this scene, where it's like, this isn't just a animation of a robot, sci-fi robot serving, drinks. It is also a commentary on, the class structure and all this sort of thing, however you might think of this, and really cool sun here. So just, to me, that just shows depth wherever we fall on how we feel about the commentary. I just think it's interesting, and it's just more evidence that there is the depth that you'll find in the contemporary art scene exists in this scene. As we kind of already know, but I still think it's worth pointing out. MCHX, going to have to run through this episode here, Les Rêves Artificiels EO1. So we've seen MCHX many times before, so also playing with the open editions. And so 9 sold at 0.2. Again, that's 0.18 ETH. What is that? Like probably $300? Not bad at all. So the open edition concept at very low prices continues to draw, there is a market for it, which I think a lot of people might not have thought about ahead of time. I think a lot of people, if you just told them abstractly that open editions, I think a lot of people would think that it wouldn't be the most collectible thing, but people keep buying them, I guess is the takeaway. So on to other works here. So onto the painting, so to speak. Uxine with a pretty interesting work here, almost like a crucifixion of what look like old Apple Macs, Chronicles of Hierarchy. And interestingly, we have the happy guy. So, almost like the pecking order here, with the happy guy on top who's drooling over top of the, again, it's almost a class structure commentary, with people in the middle who are just, doing okay, and then people on the bottom who are sad. Beautiful brushwork here. Again, very likely Procreate. Very big brush strokes, that nice loose sort of feeling, beautiful shadow here, beautiful colors, and with the do not cross and an easy flashing to consume. And not a harsh flash, but an easy one. And again, just beautiful textures, painterly background. Chronicles of Hierarchy went for auction for 3.269 ETH, so $5,000 for Uxine, so another nice sale. Went to Bfield 317 on Super Rare. So Uxine continues to hit it out of the park here. RJ. So, one of my favorite artists, RJ, has an open edition. And there's only 3 minted here. And so artificial intelligence, the prompt, the product, the prompt, the product. So anyways, just sort of highlighting this, and I think there may be some sort of burn mechanics. I'm not sure, but let's just take a closer look at the work here. And you almost wonder, so let's read the prompt here. A lonely laptop on an empty desk in a minimalist pixel art style that evokes a sense of quiet unease. Now, what I suspect might be happening here is something that another way, that's actually, I did a work that was inspired by AI, and I kind of think something similar might be going on here, which is, this is likely the prompt And then I'm just speculating here. And then RJ gets this, maybe without this text on here, as a result. And then, instead of using it as raw AI, but then uses that as a source to then apply his style on top and then make a work out of it and then maybe put the prompt in the computer screen. So that is my speculation on what's going on there. And so anyways, just kind of really cool, beautiful work for basically very cheap here. And hardly any, very low edition from RJ. Spogels Meskinen with a fabulous work here. When the Cat's Away, PC Tower, floppy disk, 5 1/4 and 3.5 inch keyboard monitor, again, 320 by 240 by 2. So just a really, really cool, fun work from Spogels Meskinen. Gotta love the keyboard and the discs. And I am old enough to remember those 5 1/4 inch floppy disks from my youth. And yeah, so it's all pretty awesome. Even a retro screensaver there. Still available for 25 Tezos, edition of 25. 6 left. It's going fast. It's probably gone by the time you get it. When the Cat's Away. Kind of a mysterious, I guess the cat may be on the keyboard. I don't know. And anyways, another one of retro computers here from Cello, who we haven't had here for a while. Let's see if this loads up. And playing all these great retro video games. I feel like this might be, I can't remember what game that is. But anyways, I feel like Hard Hat Max should be here somewhere. Maybe, I can't remember what games these are, but maybe you all remember some of these games. Anyway, I thought a cool work by Cello that kind of went well with Spogels Meskinen there. A lot of people put out work yesterday. A lot of the heavy hitters here with Myth and the Myth and Rick James, two legends. So again, looks like a Procreate work from the Myth and just a very nice piece. I'm not sure, this might be sold out by now. Edition of 15. It was going pretty quick when I loaded this up for 20 Tezos each. We'll have to check. I'm not sure if we've seen Myth's super rare Genesis, if it's come out yet, but I'll have to check because sometimes I miss stuff. And rare, go take your dogs for a morning stroll. I'm not sure if I've seen this before. So I thought I would just show it. And even, I'm not sure if it's new or not, but it's just, I feel like I recognize, again, the painting. Maybe it's a Monet. I'm not sure what the original was, but very cool from the Boston Dynamics dog artist. Hope he doesn't mind me calling him that. Sumi Reyusi with a new work as well. This is on Tezos, a digital painting. I have a winged horse in my palm. So pretty kind of a bit of a dark work in terms of the color with a cool contrast here. Maybe a bit of hope and some falling, can't remember what you call these, not cupids. There is a word for them. These kind of little winged creatures that are famously in Raphael's work. And anyways, kind of a beautiful work here from Sumi, beautiful background and everything, and kind of nice texture and everything. So that is available for 10 Tezos in a pretty low edition of 11. Wasteman Goldminovich. Why does nobody effing take me seriously? Distressed Clown. So this is a 1 of 1 at auction for 6. So another somewhat kind of, this is the guy who does the Failed Artist series. So another kind of sad work here with these extremely long cigarettes. And there's the cigarette pack there done in, I think, Microsoft Paint using like a kind of oil brush. I didn't realize there was an oil brush till I started seeing his work in Microsoft Paint. Kappa Sage, Bad Habits But Good Intentions. So this is, I'd say, pretty classic Kappa work where it's kind of surreal. There's a lot going on and you don't really know what's going on, but it's interesting. An interesting Twitter reference here. And, people hanging out. A lot of people hanging out and just a lot of mysteriousness. So anyways, and a work by Kappa in the background, a figure with no legs. Nice Nike box, or Nike. Very cool. So just kind of interesting. Kappa Sage 790, edition of 20. Oh, it's already on secondary. Let's just see. So it went only for 4 on primary, so pretty reasonable. Continuing on, rustic digital art, La Vida 2.0, reboot of La Vida, the origin of the cloud period. So again, the crop Mario returns, and we see it here on a path to this mountaintop here. And we see another crop Mario here with the surreal sky. So another, what I'd call self-consciously irrational work by rustic digital art. Yuri J. with a new work, a one of one, and a very interesting work as usual here. Look at the experimentation that is going on. You see the pixels being dragged over here, and everything, just the different textures, the surreal space, the octopus that almost doesn't make sense. Is it painted on the wall? Is it in space? The masked out plant, everything about it. And look, more just kind of edgy experimentalism. Look at this couch here, and then it's just erased through. So pretty edgy. And then this, cup that's spilled. So that is at auction for 200 Tezos. Hang out from Yuri J. It's not easy, as I've kind of said in earlier episodes, it's not easy to be irrational. Santiago with an interesting experiment. Tell my story as a fun one, AI and Inkscape. So I don't know why, but I'm always a big fan of these kind of structures. It kind of has a Rauschenberg feel to it with all these different images put together. And so anyways, this kind of looks like, almost like a Google image result sort of thing that you might see, because these images almost seem to be somewhat related, but then pretty abstracted. So anyways, interesting. Edition of 15. This is from March 5th, so this is new from Santiago. He has a few others too. Here's another one. Pretty interesting abstract piece, massive file, 13,000 by 10,000 pixels, PNG art from SVG, from cell phone photo, from physical acrylic painting. So traveling through the mediums here with very interesting results. It's tempting to try and open this big. I'm going to take a big risk because my microphone often punishes me for doing stuff like this. We are taking massive risks here. Look at this. But maybe the risk pays off. So this is what it looks like up close and personal. So super interesting. Very interesting. It looks like, again, SVG. So it looks like vector. So you could make this infinitely big, but from a distance, it looks like, pixelation. Interesting. An artist I don't think I've seen before, Primitive RE, Banishing of the Bulls, drops tomorrow. And here is a preview. So this is Procreate, and I thought quite a good looking work. And here is the animation of it being made. So just kind of interesting. How are we doing? Okay, I got to run. Very just kind of nice looking work. So anyway, Primitive RE. These were super interesting EV builds on Excel spreadsheets. So this is quite brilliant, isn't it? Using Excel spreadsheets to create, it's almost like a pixelation from a retro screen. That's what I first thought I saw when I saw these. When I saw this, it looks like a Atari screen, like a retro Atari screen, but really it's actually using Excel spreadsheet. So this one here, by the way, went to Vincent Van Doe, and I think it went for 2 ETH, Twilight Pine, same artist, EV builds. Yeah, sold for 2.1 ETH. So what is that, like $3,000 for this work here? So that is pretty cool. Interesting choice to leave the window in here, isn't it? The Twilight Pine, because you would be tempted to not leave it in. So interesting choice. Popple. Popple has a work here, edition of 25, part of the Sanitarium series that he's been working on since the start of the year, since Christmas holidays, Twins of Provision. Their fates entwined, they share a bite of tainted food and deadly delight, a ritual they performed each night, a twisted act born of fright. Look at all that rhyme. For in this place of death and decay, the twin knew no other way to survive the horrors that held sway than to feed each other day by day. So A, B, 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 I think is how you would categorize that rhyme scheme here. And pretty interesting work, isn't it? Again, has a bit of a Aliens feel to it, and just nice take on what I guess you could call it pixel art. Nice kind of textured pixel art. You see a similar thing here with 1-Bit Necro, or on Instagram, 1-Bit Horror, as 1-Bit Horror is known, or 1-Bit Necro is known. So interesting. Sometimes the sublime can cause such calamity that the human mind can't bear witness. So just a super interesting artist, and 293 likes here. So he's doing well. I think it's a he. I'm not sure on Instagram. I haven't seen any of these minted anywhere of the new ones, which is interesting. Side Hustle reappears. So a lot of people minting here, which is why this show has kind of, we're going to run through it here. So another really cool work by Side Hustle with a keyboard in it and just using retro tools here. I picked one of these up, edition of 10. Sky Goodman with a pair of works that are pretty cool. Using, I'd call it the trademark chunky pixels here with the gradients and everything. Flower Boy at Dusk is the name of this one. And let's just look. Sold for $7 on primary and sold out. And it pairs with this other one, Flower Boy at Sunrise. So edition of 15. I would feel if I bought one, I'd have to buy the other. So yeah, sold for $7 on primary. And again, doing a lot of exporting. And again, the trademark chunky pixels from Sky Goodman here. Very interesting work as usual. Interesting kind of shadow figure here behind the main, I guess we could call it Flower Boy. So interesting floor as well. Again, using, it's similar to these PFP projects that we were looking at that we were seeing where each kind of element, the head would be kind of filled a certain way, the background would be treated a certain way. They were kind of canvases for experimentation, each section. I feel like you see the same thing here, where the wall is being used to experiment a certain way, and then the floor a certain way, the person, the head. So anyways, interesting. Sculpted in VR, textured in Blender. And Stalamir, GM and Happy Women's Day, thank you for everything, and posting a really cool pixel artwork in celebration of Women's Day. In Berlin, it's actually a holiday. I think it might be one of the only places in the world. Everything shuts down, except for restaurants. So just so everybody knows, so interesting. Another happy International Women's Day, and a happy Women's Day to everybody out there. Happy International Women's Day to all the queens out there. This is Debbie T, breaking barriers and making their mark in the world. And with a classic work, Queen of Coins, and a woman on a computer with HODL and looking at the charts here and JPEG coins. So celebrating the culture as Debbie T so expertly does. I can't remember the name of this series, but she put out a whole, it's kind of like a PFP project, but she made it totally original, where she had all of these, she had words at the bottom that were from the crypto space, like LFG and, whatever the case is. And then she mixed it with different images on top. It was an extremely cool series. So anyways, just more cool work from Debbie T. And this is Axstone. I think Debbie T retweeted this. And this is on Super Rare. We've looked at Axstone's work in the past, and so here's a new work. And kind of interesting piece, very defined style that you can recognize immediately. And basically what looks like a retro TV here, kind of reminiscent of that cello work we were looking at with video games on it that almost look kind of retro here. And then people sitting and hanging out with that in the background. So interesting, kind of surreal, almost looks like a bit of a stream of consciousness work. Who has the remote? Okay, Score is the name of the work. 2.5 ETH reserve. So not cheap there. Daniel W., but good value, I'm sure, and a great artist. And she sold, I'm sure, many times for that amount. Daniel W., first 9 Best Bud pieces. Putting these together to announce that starting today, I'll be changing the titles to numbers and officially naming the series Best Buds. So starting today, we'll have a reset of sorts, and now a thread about these two. So this is the series that apparently Daniel W. has been working on for years. And we have these characters here, available for only 3 Tezos, up to no good. And so here are the characters. And so, yeah, anyways, you see Buds there. Never trust a devil with your stuff. And we have another one, Best Buds number 10, hot as hell. So again, you can get some of the early appearances, should this ever be turned into a series here, You can get some of the early appearances of these first appearances, from Daniel W. Flora Marquez, who I never get tired of looking at, and who never ceases to, inspire and impress. Like, look at how great this work is. March 7th, 2023, adopting what works for us, discarding what hurts us. And we just see more super creativity. Again, kind of has a drama feel to it. Like it looks like illustrations made by a costume designer in the very best way, or something you'd see, again, like a Punch and Judy type thing. It kind of has a surreal element with these beaks on the side here and this beautiful head. So anyways, super cool work, and only selling for 17 Tezos. This sold to Amelia Versace. And another one, a cool mask. Again, you see the kind of theatrical drama side of things here. Don't underestimate the power of a mask. And this sold to Mentalist 420, who has, I think, a few of these for 17 Tezos as well. So pretty good for a one of one, if you ask me. In terms of value, Ellie Lowe, brace yourself, and just maximize. So one of my favorite trash artists out here, Ellie Lowe, puts out a new one on Tezos. So edition of 25, and that is on secondary for $7.99. And yeah, just sells it for next to nothing on primary for Tezos 50, and hardly takes any royalties. So interesting in that respect from Ellie Lowe. A new one from Acid Soup. And again, I just think of the Modern Furniture series, but totally different. And so we saw the hamburger, we saw the donut, and now we see pizza. So still available for $3.33 for 3 Tezos, edition of 11. And let's just see how many are left. Still 4 left. So pretty reasonable. And look at this one by Ex Mortal. I remember these, and I want to call this a Pentax. And what do you call these? The word is escaping me. Like a Polaroid? It's like a Polaroid where, and so, yeah. So a kind of a retro tech that we don't see very often. Uxine has one that celebrates these kind of cameras, I'm pretty sure. 6 Super Color, available for 10 Tezos on secondary. Let's just see, selling for 5 on primary. So pretty cool. I mean, you could show that in a gallery and it would just be very cool. This was really cool too. I think Uxine retweeted this one. JPEG Fam, I think is the title. A very cool open edition, only 6 minted at 0.01. So another really cool open edition at a low price. This is created by Formless, but here it says Corpega.eth. So maybe Formless is the name and Corpega is the Twitter account. So I'm not sure exactly the details on the authorship, but it sounds like it's created by Formless here. Anyways, pretty cool work. Pretty edgy. I mean, it looks like a flayed person here with blood coming down, and then this crazy Web3 ready retro, pixelation. So just kind of reminiscent of the artists' web art of like the late 90s, early 2000s. Seems like a bit of a hat tip to that. There's a whale in the sun. Just a super interesting work for very cheap. And look at Connexapta with this work here. I'm going to reload this. It's called Homepage. Welcome to my homepage. A net art, exactly. So another kind of net art piece. And I'm not sure if this is interactive or not, but I think it loads up different every time. Welcome to my home, and then let's just try loading it. Yeah, you see? So look at that. This is a homepage. So you wonder if net art could make a comeback here, because the appreciation for it hasn't gone away. Text by ChatGPT. So Connexapta works with AI as well. So you wonder how AI fit into this. There is a write-up here. So anyways, just interesting work. Available for 5 Tezos, edition of 20. And Georgie is back. Immaterialism will be the name of the next collection on Foundation. So it seems like a slight development on the last works that we're seeing from Georgie here. So that is really interesting to watch it evolve. we'll have to look at some of those earlier works, and once he puts out more, and compare, because it looks like there is an evolution going on here. Shout out to Georgie, who was on the Spaces a couple of weeks ago. Always great to hear from you and see you. Sky Goodman with another one. I kind of put this in the AI section because it seemed like a little bit more AI. Beautiful colors. And I also really like, this beautiful outline here. Almost has like a Renaissance Madonna type feel to it. Almost like you almost could, back up and see like the Madonna and Child here in the outline, but we're looking at a shoe, AI glitch art. And so a lot of exporting, a part of the Lost Sneakers series by Sky Goodman. More AI sneakers, this time courtesy of Strange Thing. How are we doing? Okay, we're almost done here. Beautiful, beautiful. Look at this. Beautiful work from Strange Thing, making it look very easy. So from my just layperson's point of view here on the AI, look at this. Strange Thing continued to really prove himself with each work and series of works, like really next level AI here. Look at the rubber boots. Super creativity and coming up with super results here. Look at this. So, and it looks like using some, like the most recent, like it looks very high resolution as well, as I guess where I'm going with this. So it continues to be super interesting from Strange Thing. AI assortment of footwear inspired by the Renaissance period from masters of the arts, architecture, and current textiles of the time. So he puts that a lot too. So it really, again, kind of smart marketing with all the repetition, because it really drills the point home what he's doing. He is the guy that does the AI art fashion in Renaissance style. Human Boy, also celebrating International Women's Day. Make sure you take the time to let the women in your life know how much they mean to you. And they never stop doing that every day. I took my girlfriend out for dinner last night, actually. We went to a very famous place in Berlin, Max and Moritz, if anybody's ever been there, where you get the schnitzel and a beer, and it is super classic. Anyways, a beautiful work by Human Boy celebrating Women's Day. And speaking of which, The Muses by Danielle King. Danielle just put out, this is what we'd call a generative work, but it's also AI because there's 500 of them. And so let me just show you. So you see all of them here. So different women represented here. And let's just look. The Muses is a generative AI art project that examines the portrayal of women in art history and fashion. So also working with fashion and AI. So the project reimagines the concept of the artist's muse by using source images and prompts from a diverse range of artists and designers from the Renaissance to now. Through this process, 500 unique portraits of imagined women are generated, each with her own distinct name. So very cool series. So that is Danielle King. And finally, Shilly the Kid with an interesting work made with DALL-E. And I feel like these textures, to me, are trademark DALL-E textures, aren't they? Like, I feel like we can start to recognize sometimes, if someone asked me which AI program do you think made this, I would have said DALL-E with these beautiful kind of painterly textures here. So someone had a computer. This Town Series 2. Nice piece, edition of 25, 19 left, so still a few left here, and kind of would hang very well with Soom's work. And again, it kind of has the DALL-E textures, if I had to guess here. And I think she mentioned that on earlier works. So anyways, a nice kind of almost abstract room here. So again, kind of veering towards abstraction as we started this episode with Michael Micasso there. Very reasonably priced, one of one for 35 Tezos. For all you AI and one of one collectors out there, that is a very reasonable price. Clown Vamp, with a work, this was from a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't realize I wasn't following Clown Vamp, so I missed all sorts of work. So I wanted to show one, and here is one by Clown Vamp. And this is part of the Detective Jack series. So anyways, that has been fixed. And I thought just kind of a pretty cool, what I'd consider a fairly abstract, although that is debatable. Maybe it's part of the series. It's an explosion or something of a car, who knows what. But I just thought a really cool kind of AI abstract work. And also playing with circles here, Marina Amadova, edition of 15. And she has a few of these AI works working with bubbles. And so slightly different feel and texture to these works. Everlasting Feminine, composition 3. Maybe perhaps that was also done for Women's Day. AI artist Marina Amadova. So always good to see her minting. And here's Ile, also playing with the circles theme. Lightness number 19, AI Pathway, with some beautiful textures on here. So very impressive, especially when you look at, say, I really like the white of the clouds here. So painterly. And again, we were seeing that with some of the code. Remember those people that we're seeing on Twitter who are making very persuasive and convincing brush, kind of like looks like it was physically painted, but they were using pure code? That's what this reminds me of here with the AI renders that we're getting. It's getting more and more convincing, isn't it? So anyway, cool work by Ile, available for 2 Tezos and still 4 left. I think I picked one up. Quila Nina with a physical work as we wrap up here. Mama Oklo. So I believe this is oil and acrylic on canvas. And again, kind of these visionary works from Quila Nina. She's out of Argentina and Peru. So yeah, so just really beautiful, beautiful work here. Acrylic and oil on canvas, inspired by the tarot card, the Empress. Some more tarot, which is interesting too. And look at this, work in progress, soon in exhibition, Munich Art MOOC, and on object.com, Pocobelli. So we were commenting on this work that I saw, a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago. So here it is in progress. It is a physical work, and a very cool physical work, very impressive physical work by Jam. So shout out to Jam. And also Daukanti Draws with a pretty cool, also physical work. In Lithuanian, we call this gym exercise weighing salt. So that is the name of the piece here. So another beautiful work with colored pencils on what looks like paper. So another physical NFT. And this went on primary for only 2 Tezos. And now it is for 10. Very cool. And look at this, Edmarola. We're tying the bow here. Let's get physical, making physical work. So that is a ton of fun. And that is really exciting, isn't it? Just as an artist and as a collector and just everything, it's just really exciting to see a pixel artist like Ed, who's so original and creative, showing the physical work. So that is just super interesting and fun and kind of exciting. Here's another physical work by Walk, and I thought just such an interesting subject matter. It looks like Cinderella putting on the slipper here, but done with a walk type treatment. And almost like, what I find so interesting about this work is it takes the cartoon, kind of hard outlines of cartoons, but then starts applying shading to it, and then also redoes it by removing the color. So first adding gradients and like this kind of texture, so kind of reimagining a way of like transforming that, what could be like an animation still, and then really kind of, I think just really original and easy, kind of very subtle what's going on here. And finally, here's an artist that you may or may not have seen, Julia Wachtel. I feel like she should have like 100,000 followers from everything I've seen of her work, but she's only got like 6,000, which is still a lot. But I mean, she looks like she shows in, pretty major galleries from what I could tell. Michael Margeris is another really interesting artist. So anyways, just another interesting artist here. And I particularly thought that this one here it's just pretty interesting. Again, hard contrast between this kind of cartoon and now here's like painterly gradients and with an interesting semi-opaque layer of white on top. And here's another interesting work. So this is Woven Tapestries by Aaron M. Riley. Okay. And so kind of edgy content here. Nothing too crazy. But look, these are tapestries. So pretty interesting tapestry work here. So just more interesting physical work out there outside of the NFT scene, as far as I understand. Look at that. So tapestry. That is your show, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I apologize for the show being so long. There's just too much out there. What would you cut? Anyway, until next time. Until next time, my friends, take care.